Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And in this one, we've got a massive update. Are we going to have to organize some funerals for specializations in PvP? And is the PvP gearing system ruined? And I say that with a little bit of hyperbole tagged on the back of it here, but this is a massive update. And if you've been with the channel following through this, I'm doing my best to keep you all updated with it. And if you want to keep up to date with the news, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, as I'm uploading basically every day and making sure that all this information is relevant to you so that when you're playing the game, you know exactly what you need to do. You know exactly what you need to go for gameplay. I focus on performance, and I also focus on fun, making sure that we're getting what we want out of the game here. But specifically, PvP rewards have been a big deal in Shadowlands throughout the beta, and so far it's felt like, hey, they've listened, they've bumped up item levels, they've reduced honor requirements, and things are going seemingly well. And then kind of out of nowhere, we got this update on the Conquest vendor, and everyone immediately was like, what's happening? What's happening? And I think specifically it was this change here. The Conquest Caps specifically. So if you've remembered any PvP gearing systems in the past, you earned Conquest, you spent Conquest to buy gear. The cap was set at 550, which seemed very low. I mean, maybe with the Conquest price readjustments, this may be a piece of gear from the vendor, but it seemed very low, I think, and people were expecting maybe to be able to get more gear than this. And the main reason that I think they felt that way is because Mythic Plus is spammable. So the way I see this system playing out, while you still will get very good gear from PvP, likely the majority of your gear from PvP is going to be the best in PvP by the end of the season, right? When our Conquest has accumulated the way that it accumulates here, you will be getting the best gear from PvP. But initially, you may, if you want to, intermingle PvE and PvP, you're going to be getting a bigger item level faster than the rest of the game that's only PvPing. So I think that's the initial kind of worry. But I just wanted to go over some of the changes specifically that you need to realize and what you need to go after to make sure that you're not missing out. Conquest is a currency that is only used to buy gear from this vendor. Don't think of getting your Conquest cap for your chest at the end of the week. That is not the currency that you need to aim for. There is now a secondary currency, which is just honor, which may get confusing because I don't know if they've separated honor earned from ranked PvP as a currency and honor earned from unranked content as a currency, because it doesn't look like it they have from the first paragraph that I've read. So what you will need to do when you're playing ranked PvP, the first goal is to get as much honor from ranked PvP as you can to make sure that you're hitting the threshold to get at least one item from your Great Vault. Now, you can earn additional honor on top of that to be able to choose up to 3 items from your Great Vault. And what is Great Vault? That is your chest at the end of the week. That is that random gear that you were getting in Battle for Azeroth or Legion. That is the Great Vault. However, it's an improved version because of what I've just explained. You can earn increasingly more honor and pick which one you want out of the 3. So if the game kept giving you bracers, and BFA, and you never got what you wanted, screw that. That's gone. Now you might get bracers every week, but because you earned enough honor to have 2 other choices, ooh, a shiny chest piece, ooh, some new leg plates, you're going to have a choice there. So you want to make sure you're earning a lot of honor from ranked PvP. This Conquest should be thought of as targeting best in slot pieces. So something like chest piece, helmet, maximum stat value pieces. Avoid buying trinkets. The Conquest trinkets and higher item level trinkets do not change enough stat-wise to justify the budget on them. You only want honor trinkets from unranked PvP like Battlegrounds, because you will get the trinket bonus at the equivalent value of a Conquest trinket without spending Conquest. And because Conquest is so limited, like we've been seeing here, you want to spend this on some very pristine and prime stuff. One thing I'm a bit worried about, so at the end of the season, you're going to be wearing PvP gear. When you're trying to push for titles and like that and stuff like that, you're going to be wearing this Conquest gear and you're going to be able to get it. It's just initially people are going to be getting advantages over each other whether it be because they're doing some Mythic Plus, because that also has a lot of versatility gear. That would be my recommendation if you really want to min at max, is cap the Conquest, get the honor to have 3 choices from your Great Vault, maybe only 2 on the first week, but if you really think you have bad RNG and you like playing Arena, go for 3, and then do Mythic Plus, and target the dungeons that drop gear with your best stat allocation. For a lot of classes, this is haste versatility. And that way you're intermingling them. You'll get 2 pieces of PvP gear a week, and you'll fill in the holes from the Mythic Plus. And then by the time the end of the season rolls around, you'll have upgraded all of this gear, assuming that you've pushed a duelist above the Mythic Keystone level, and you're a happy camper. You'll be wearing the best PvP gear that you can get in the game. It's just initially intermingling the two, if you really want to have an edge, is going to benefit you to do that. I myself personally, am I going to do that, or am I just going to stick to the battlegrounds, the rated arenas? Probably just the battlegrounds and rated arenas, unless I feel like that advantage is really making a difference. So if you want to see if that's going to be the case, you can follow me on twitch.tv/Supatease, and I'll be streaming there every day, and I'll be capping PvP, and we'll find out, right? Did the person who go into a heroic raid get a weapon and is suddenly just trouncing everybody in PvP? That's what we were worried about, right? That's what we want to find out. I'm not sure, because the raid doesn't have a lot of versatility gear, and hopefully that versatility trinket bonus will help us out here. And with all the nerfs to the PvE trinkets as well, will allow PvP players who gear in PvP to feel like that gear is valuable and powerful and their progression is worthwhile. But I feel like it was the initial knee-jerk reaction was like, whoa, this Conquest was so low, I can't get any gear with that. Ultimately, the system is designed so that you always feel like you're getting an upgrade, right? If they just gave everything to you, then you would be like, well, I can't get any upgrades anymore. And I've seen this complaint from people when they get all the gear. They're like, well, what am I playing for? I'm not getting an upgrade. But then when it's like this, where it's allocated like, yes, you'll be getting this upgrade along this track the whole time. And then it's, well, I can't get all my gear. And you can't go back and forth on that. It's like, do you want to feel like you're always getting gear upgrades? It needs to be similar to this, where you're unlocking and it's time gated a bit. Or do you want to feel like you just grinded the crap out of the game and now you got everything and there's nothing to look forward to? I mean, those are really only your only choices. Myself, I like playing competitively, right? If I could choose, I preferred a template system where item level, like Legion basically, right? And I'm not going to go into detail about how the Legion system worked, but I would rather the individual or the team play be the main deciding factor to the victory, and the strategy be the main deciding victory to the game than power. That's my personal preference. I know people are going to disagree with me when I say that, but that is mine. But if people want this and more people want this, and this gets more people to play the game, then I'm all for, let's get some gear, let's get some power-ups and stuff like that, right? Because I want the game to be fun for the majority. I want more people to be playing the game, ultimately, over my own personal preference. So I'm not going to argue that. If people want it, then let's go for that. But let's make sure it's done right. I think this system will work in the long run, but in the short term, you may feel like you're inclined to PvE a little bit. Aside from that, we got other big updates towards the classes. This is where are we going to be organizing some funerals, right? Specifically, Hunters, Paladins, and Rogues here were targeted the most. Now, Hunter, I'm sure a lot of people have experienced in random battlegrounds, skirmish. You just get absolutely donked out of the game immediately. Did it need to get nerfed? This goes into a more of a philosophical balance point for me, where we have one side, which is BFA. Healers never run out of mana. Games go to 80% dampening. Nobody dies, whether it's battlegrounds or arenas. Nothing's happening. And then we have this side of the spectrum, which is everyone's instantly dead. I can't even interact with the game, right? And in my mind, they're both not good, right? They're not good. But if I had to pick between the two, and because I have great fear of this one, where nothing's happening and no one runs out of mana, I would prefer the one where people die really fast. So maybe I'm like a little bit traumatized or something from my experience in Battle for Azeroth with this end for years, that I'm like, okay, I don't really care that the Hunter killed me instantly, because this was still better than this. Would I like it to be in the middle? Yes, I would. How do you get to the middle? Well, it's like tuning a knob, right? So if nothing's happening, this means that your musical instrument is flat. If too much is happening, it means your musical instrument is sharp. You take the tuning knob, you readjust it down, and you try to get it in tune. But what usually ends up happening is people make, when it's on this side, right, when damage is really high, people make videos that are like, oh my god, the one shot, oh my god, he died instantly, oh, this game, haha, and then they make memes, and then Blizzard's gonna go, well, our game needs to be taken more seriously. Now, what I would like to have happen is, oh, our game is too sharp, let's tune it down a little bit, get it in tune. But what ends up happening is, okay, we're back over here, and now we're flat. But nobody's making videos about flat. Why? Because it's not exciting, right? Nobody's going to monetize a YouTube video of, look, nothing's happening. But people will make YouTube videos and monetize, oh my God, I got one shot. So now there's no feedback coming in about nothing happening. And it's like, well, the best players just play the best and the game goes on because they're the best. But it's like, no, there is actually a problem when it's that far on this end where nothing is happening. So for me, with these tuning adjustments, I wanted it to be done slowly, the same way that I adjust the mouthpiece on my saxophone. I'm not just going to be like, oh, sharp, plug it in all the way, right? And so is that going to be achieved here? That's what I'm really worried about. So initially for Marksmanship Hunters, aim shot no longer deals 10% increased damage. This is likely a PvP-specific buff to Marksman in previous expansions where it was not good, right? We have to go into why was Marksman not good. It's stationary. It's easy to lock down and to kill off in competitive situations. Obviously, in a random battleground when they're sitting 50 yards away and tapping people, yeah, they're really good in that. But competitively, it's very easy to control, and it needs very explosive damage to compensate for all of the downsides that it has inherently on the spec. For me, I think that Marksmanship Hunter was deserving of a readjustment like Affliction or Shadow Priest was. To bring it back in as the ranged hunter spec, because survival's a melee spec and BM's a pet spec. So for me, like, Marksman is the fantasy for ranged hunter spec, and right now it has too many downsides and no upsides with how limited its damage is being stationary. I don't know if Marksmanship Hunter can exist in the game without feeling totally useless or one-shotting people the way that it is. Like, I don't know if you can. It doesn't seem like it's a spec that you can tune and have it be competitive and fun the way that just the kit of the class is at the moment. It has far too many downsides in PvP specifically. But additionally, your double tap extra aim shot is going to be dealing 50% reduced damage in PvP situations. This makes sense. I think that this one made a lot of sense because when you proc these two together with True Shot or with your Kyrian Covenant ability, buffing up your mastery on Resonating Arrow and then a higher crit chance, and then yeah, you were wiping people out with that. That made sense. The 10% additional damage on your sustain, while I like that this is a small number, right? They didn't 30% nerf on it. It seems like maybe too much all at once. That's why I'm a bit worried that we're going to go too far. And Marksman is a spec where you can easily go too far and then everyone forgets it exists. Marksman was a spec that needed to be really delicate. So I'm a bit worried about it. Although still at the start of the season here, damage is very high because health pools are low. You'll probably still be okay initially as a Marksmanship Hunter. My concern is going to be later on when health pools get higher. With the testing we did on the beta with higher item levels, the game does slow down. And when we get to that point, for me personally, I in a PvP situation, I feel like I'm going to have to recommend avoiding Marksman. Because I think the way that it's designed is either people are going to be making one-shot videos about it and then it's going to get nerfed and then it's not going to be, you're just going to be forgotten. So my recommendation would be to avoid it. Hopefully this doesn't result in them completely disappearing, but this is all Marksman really brings. And if all you bring is something that people make videos about and complain about, probably not a good thing. Retribution Paladin. This one, I think they did a good job targeting specifically what it was doing, like an overbearing amount of damage, which was the Kyrian Covenant ability, Divine Toll. They targeted Ringing Clarity, which is a conduit. Now, when you have a chance to proc Judgment from Divine Toll, it's only going to proc 2 extra Judgments, not 3. This is very similar to previous iterations of Elemental Shaman, where they would proc multiple hits of a spell and then tap somebody out and multi-strike as a stat in the past. And in PvP, this has always had complications, right? They would just be, whoa, out of nowhere, you just proc 10 things and I died. And it had synergies with Avenging Wrath and Final Reckoning and all these other things, just buffing up damage. It made sense to target this specifically. They also, unfortunately, I think that this may have overkilled it. They've targeted the Judgment itself from Divine Toll. And the reason that this is a big deal is because if the conduit doesn't proc, you only get 1 Judgment. And then the 1 Judgment is nerfed now. So if you don't get lucky on this ability, it's not going to do damage. So my recommendation, if you're a Retribution Paladin, is to go Night Fae. You're going to get more mobility, and you're going to get increased damage through the Blessings of Seasons and Blessing of Summer specifically, it would be my recommendation that we all switch to Night Fae in PvP to gain those benefits. As this is like this double targeted nerf, you're going to rely heavily on it. You're already relying on RNG, but the RNG was a really big payout. It's not as big of a payout. And if you get bad RNG, it's really bad RNG. And then most on top of this all, this one seemed a bit unnecessary. Final Reckoning was a new ability. I thought it was super cool. You just put a circle on the ground, called in this big AoE, you had to aim it, people could dodge it, and it increased your damage outside of your Avenging Wrath window in PvP, which Ret Paladins have been lacking for a really long time. And I thought it was a lot of fun, but they also targeted it here specifically, reducing its damage increasing effects by 20% down to 30%. So targeting the one shot, I think that targeting the RNG was really good. This may have been overkill to the point where I think it is better to be Night Fae. And now this on top of it seemed a bit unnecessary. This would have targeted the one-shotting that was going on with Ret Paladin more than enough. This now just kind of disables a pretty cool talent. From competitive play. You're probably just going to see Sanctified Wrath in a lot of cases, which Night Fae benefits from as well, with Blessing of Summer increasing the holy damage. So big changes for Ret Paladin specifically here. And now Rogue, this is one that I think deserved something like 3 changes to it. Why? Because it has way more lockdown, insane survivability through things like Feint for constant damage reduction, vanishing from a fight, amazing cooldowns like Evasion and Cloak, insane mobility at all times. It's everything in a spec, and it was doing all of this crazy damage. So to me, the fact that suddenly Rogue only got 1 and things that like Marksman that you have to be really delicate with because of the way it's designed, and things like Ret Paladin that had a lot of weaknesses to play and outplay around got a significant amount of nerfs, whereas Rogue just kind of got this conduit nerf where your Echoing Reprimand damage is going to be lower, which made sense. Echoing Reprimand was hitting as hard as some of these other abilities from these classes and was instant cast. But you also gain Mastery from activating Echoing Reprimand, which increases your Eviscerate damage, which is hitting really hard. And then on top of everything that I think needs to be removed, which I don't know how it's still kicking, Nyalotha's still here. N'Zoth is still here. Drestigath. Why is that still a trinket? People are still using it. People are going to go back and farm Nyalotha to get a trinket from BFA to kill people in PvP and Shadowlands? It's hitting as hard as some of the hardest hitting abilities in the game, which is crazy because those abilities are hitting really hard. It's an expansional trinket. How is that possible? It then draws concern for me into, is the PvP trinket bonus working? Is the PvP trinket bonus actually good enough? Because why is somebody sacrificing that bonus to wear a trinket from last expansion? Is there a tuning problem? What's happening here? That Drestigath trinket, all previous expansion trinkets need to have some sort of legacy effect where they do 80% less damage to players in PvP once you hit a max level or something, the same way that old set bonuses get nerfed from previous raid tiers as well, because I don't think that it's appropriate that people are still using Drestigath, and they will use it competitively. It's not just like, oh, they dinged max level and they're still using a trinket from last expansion. No, they're deliberately keeping that trinket because there's nothing else that is going to be benefiting them more than that trinket. That trinket needs to get removed. But specifically with Rogue, only their conduit, a little bit of Echoing Reprimand damage is reduced. They have insane scaling metrics with cooldowns to activate to increase their damage on the target with Find Weakness, or just increasing their damage flat out on a low cooldown, and conduits that are buffing their shadow damage on top of all of this, which is then causing things like Shadow Blades to hit really hard, on top of a great kit defensively, offensively, and utility based. That I think that Sub Rogue was a spec that needed to be looked at a little bit more specifically than just, oh yeah, Echoing Reprimand hit a little bit too hard. Whereas for Hunter and for Paladin, that seemed to be the main problem. Divine Toll was doing too much, and Double Tap Aim Shot was doing too much. So I think Sub Rogue walks off this, no problem. And I think that the Sub Rogue composition, Rogue Mage, is going to be absolutely amazing. Rogue is still going to have a lot of synergies. This is not removing you whatsoever. It's bringing you. This is a tuning adjustment that was slow, that I would have liked to have seen only for the other specs as well. Because of its base kit in PvP. I think it probably needed a bit more of an adjustment, but as far as my recommendation for Sub Rogue players, you don't really need to worry about it. I think you're still going to be totally fine after a change like this. I just wanted to run you through the changes here, updates to the PvP vendor, and my thoughts. So in summary, PvP gear is going to be the best in PvP, assuming they remove Justigath for whatever reason that thing is still around. I think by the end of the season, the PvP gear will be the best gear in PvP. You will ultimately need to get higher rating to get the best gear, being 226 item level at duelist rating. But at the start, if you want to try and get a bit of an edge, you will want to cap your honor from ranked PvP combat along with your conquest, so that you'll get your Great Vault piece every week and you'll buy your Conquest vendor piece every week, and then supplement it with Mythic Plus, targeting the dungeons that drop versatility gear with your best stat. If you do that, you will gear up rapidly. Do not spend Conquest on trinkets. It's not worth it. The stats of the trinket are not worth it. Spend Conquest on big chunky pieces, chest piece, helmet, big chunky pieces. You may want to roll the dice on a weapon. You may want to, because you might, I'm wondering if they've removed weapons from the Great Vault, because this is going to be the biggest power jump. If you got a weapon from the Great Vault, 200 item level, you got 2,400 in the first 2 weeks, you upgraded that baby up to 226 weapon, you got one of the best weapons of the game 2 weeks in. And that was all from RNG, because the weapon is super expensive. It's the most expensive conquest item on the vendor. So I don't know if they're going to remove the weapons from the Great Vaults, but if you roll the dice on that weapon, you're going to absolutely be insane. And then other than that, maybe go for the weapon from Mythic Plus. Save your conquest from buying the weapon because it costs so much. If you want to just up your stats overall at a faster margin, target your weapon from PvE. Buy the chunky chest piece and helmet from the vendor. Upgrade it with honor. Make sure you get the honor cap. We talked about it. And aside from that, yeah, I think by the end of the season, PvP gear is going to be the best. It's not going to be too big of a deal. It's just initially, how much of an advantage are people going to get when they're playing 80 hours a week of Mythic Plus content and PvP and mixing their stats? If you want to find out, you can follow me on twitch.tv/Supatease. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave it with a like if you did. Again, subscribe to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. I'm going to have them linked here as well. And aside from that, I'll see you in the next video.